Live, and this hour we begin with the breaking news that you heard live here on CBC News Network just minutes ago, that Ottawa is giving the go-ahead to a blockbuster deal in Canada's telecom sector. That's Rogers' proposed $20+ billion takeover of Shaw. It has just received federal approval. There are strict conditions attached. The industry minister, François-Philippe Champagne, making that announcement, again, as I mentioned, as you heard live. Scott Peterson here as we listen to it together. Let's go over, first of all, Scott, the terms of what Ottawa has just laid out.
Because they're substantial. One, that we knew that they were going to spin out Shaw's Freedom Mobile over to Videotron. That's part of Quebecor. $3 billion is the price tag on that. And there's a list of conditions there with Quebecor having to fulfill that obligation. For example, Quebec prices quoted by the industry minister is 20% cheaper than they are in the rest of Canada. So Videotron is expected to have a 20% discount as far as its expansion into the rest of Canada. This is the desire by Ottawa to have a fourth player in the Canadian telecom network. Also, that Videotron is expected to invest $150 million over the next 2 years, and the licenses that it's acquiring from the Rogers-Shaw deal cannot be sold for 10 years. So that's a bit of a proprietary issue there. Also, for the condition of this to go through, Rogers has to guarantee 3,000 new jobs on top of jobs that are already in Western Canada, and to guarantee the positions of those jobs for the next 10 years, and also big investments as well in the contract. $5 billion of spending is expected to expand the network, $1 billion to connect rural, remote, and Indigenous communities, and the fines are substantial as well. And again, the industry minister referring to the contract, that there's a $200 million fine against Videotron or Quebecor if they do not fulfill the terms of the contract, and a $1 billion fine to Rogers if they do not fulfill the terms of these contracts. And what an extraordinary sort of announcement, as far as, you know, and there was questions about how this is possible to maintain, what is a significant reduction in prices, because this is what the industry minister was hitting home to Canadians, that one, Canadians want lower prices and they also want more competition. But how do you do that in the apparent sort of shrinking of the industry? So that's why he's really pinging his hopes on Quebecor's Videotron to be a fourth player in the country.
So it was interesting. He talked about why he initially stopped the merger from going ahead, and the changes that have taken place over the 2 years of discussions and the regulatory hurdles, putting in place what he called these contracts with Canadians to ensure greater access through more competition and lower prices. And as you say, he said that there are measures that they're going to have to attain in terms of reducing prices in this country, where we know we pay very, very high prices for our wireless. And if not, he said he would seek new powers, legislative measures, one would assume, to force those price reductions. But there were a lot of questions about how feasible that is, how difficult it would be to pursue that.
Yeah, and it sounds like this is a very specific contract, and 2 years in the making, so we assume that there's a lot of fine print that both sides have agreed to, or three sides have agreed to. But one of the interesting questions is how, if one of the telecoms disagrees with the ruling from the federal government, can they challenge that in court? And in effect, will that delay them lowering prices or doing something for a couple of years when it's trapped in the legal consequences? But he's saying that actions have consequences, and he wanted to deliberately pinpoint the telecoms, saying that reasonable amount of time that they are expected to lower prices and to obligate themselves to this contract. So it's a very extraordinary situation when you have the government, Ottawa in this instance, inserting itself into private industry and sort of calling the shots. So it's an extraordinary announcement that he made this morning.